our students. Welcome at Bisla. It's really honor and pleasure for me to have this kind of discussion today. Thank the Association of Social Services to create such occasion, and scenario is very easy. You are many of you here who know much better than me on the issue and topic. So I am here also to listen to you. So the lessons will be also for me, not only from what I see as crucial. But first point, kindly ask you to introduce our honored guest, Simon Duffy, here at Bisla, and then I will continue immediately.
Great. Okay. Good morning. My name is Miro Canga, and I will be moderating this discussion. Simon Duffy, so he is our guest this week for several activities, and Simon is a human rights activist, welfare researcher, and philosopher, social philosopher. He worked for many years in social affairs and social welfare in UK, and you introduced personal budgets in the UK, and you are founder or co-founder of Citizen Network, which is global network for NGOs working in this area, and you work with the issue of the rights for people with disabilities, but also general philosophy. So we are looking forward to discuss with you, and thank you. So I hope I didn't forget something important.
No, I am waiting what you will say about me.
Professor Radičová, professor of sociology, everyone knows her here, former Prime Minister of Slovakia, Minister of Social Affairs.
Thank you once more for introduction. If you do not mind, only 2-3 sentences concerning Bisla, where you are now sitting. International School for Liberal Arts. In Slovakia, this connection is wrong at all. Liberal arts. But not only in Slovakia, we will talk more about the shifts we are looking and we are involved at present times. We have bachelor study in this field, and plus you are now inside NGO. It's our legal status, and plus here is the center of liberal arts colleges all around the world. So we connect 52 colleges from whole world. And this is creating for our students the chances and possibilities for exchanges. So many of them are studying abroad, then return back, and then once more go abroad and don't return back. What to do? I apologize. I am a bit sick. I will try my best. If I am wrong, Simon will manage, I am absolutely sure. So we can have a seat, and for introduction to the discussion, I would like to say only really 3 sentences. You who build these altars now to sacrifice these children, you must not do it anymore. Leonard Cohen. We have to hear what's around us, and many sectors reflecting what's going on and are very sensitive to the issues of those who are not included in our societies. At its core, democracy is not merely a system of government. It's a social contract that demands active participation, compromise, and willingness, and this is crucial, to sacrifice individual desires for the collective good. As democratic citizens or tribal members or anyone else, we must live with the uneasy emotions of this, to sacrifice. Are we prepared? Democracy asks a lot of us. We are called to make sacrifices that go unrecognized. And no matter the outcome of any political conflict, there are those whose suffering persists and whose cries for justice remain unaddressed. The wounds we suffer in pursuit of justice are never fully healed by the compromise solutions required by democratic politics. So what we can do? Not to repeat such a scenario and picture of the costs for democracy. Democracy should do opposite, to create benefits, common good. And if this is not the result, that somewhere there is a really deep, fatal error. And this is what I would like to talk with you today. To recognize this fatal error and to try to find a way how to solve the problems. Okay, as an introduction for discussion, hopefully it's okay.
Yeah.
And now the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. So before I start with the questions, just very short technical information. The discussion will be held for 1.5 hours between Simon and Iveta, and after that you will get also place to ask some questions. You can use internet Mentimeter, or you can just ask directly in the last 40-30 minutes. So it's just technical information, but we will just start, and we can start with directly with the very important question. How would you both describe what's going now in the world, in Europe, and also in other countries, because we see that the populism is going up. It is quite difficult time after pandemic and after the start of the war at the Ukraine. So we see that the war begins to be very harsh. So how would you describe it? And yeah.
You're being invited to go first. You're the proper
Sometimes
politician.
it's not perfect to be woman, you know, because usually they ask me to always to start, but I will try my best. Better would be the question where the answer should be a bit optimistic, but I will say the truth. We are facing complex of uncertainties. It's not only pandemic, energy crisis, and the war. These three together would be enough. But it's more, in this century, it's a combination of the consequences of, at the beginning, financial crisis until today, together with all the new crises we have mentioned, which created complex of uncertainties. It's not surprising if in such occasions of uncertainties, people are open to any kind of certain point. And who is prepared to offer easy certain point? Populists. So what we are facing today is a real increase of what I call populist crazy. It's based on totally new paradigm, totally new in modern times, old-fashioned in history. On one side, there is an assumption that truths are the facts we can verify. The contra point, and what is now on the table, is truth as a construct. You can construct what you wish and try to pursue the truth. As you can construct it, you can also deconstruct it. And therefore, it's based on emotions. And leadership, which is also based on easiest construction, populist construction, which is nothing more than the copy of public opinion. Paradox we can formulate is that leaders are those constructors. Politicians are those constructions. So first they construct reality, public opinion, and then they react on their own construct. They can create problem, virtual, not realistic. We can see it in Slovakia, changes in our constitution. It's not a problem at all. It's false. More, it's stupidity and discriminatory. But of a problem, we can keep to sex orientation, nothing more. Imagine, footnote, our Christian Democratic Party concentrate all their effort on sex. Where they are.
Yeah.
Catastrophe. That's truth. So this new fight we can see around the world globally. Trumpism, together with all the shifts around the world towards this kind of populistocracy based on truth as a construct, emotions and creation of public opinion and then solutions to the problems which I have constructed, resulted in total dissatisfied citizens and polarized. Those who see that this is the game and those who would like to solve real problems in reality. I try to call them still liberal Democrats. Few of them are still here, alive. So this is the major shift. And if you look from this point of view, if we agree with this diagnosis, hopefully yes, then we can find together what we can do. According to the index of autocracy, 27% of former democratic governments are today autocratic governments. 8 from 10 governments from the last year elections are populist and autocratic. So the shift towards autocratism is strong and visible to the right extremists all around the world. Look at the European Parliament. Please do not concentrate only on the fractions. The most important is that it connected 206 national political parties. And if you look on these 206 national political parties, then the shift towards right extremism is inside European Parliament. That's why welfare started to be as something really non-popular. It's, how to call it? It's created false picture that it's only on some kind of social packages redistributed to those in need, and me, as a leader, will decide who is in need, and I will construct it. To have voters on my side. This is today politics. And if we do not stop it and talk very openly that this is not the way, we citizens are those who still have voting right. We citizens are also responsible if there are such shifts. So what we can do to stop this destruction on the basis of human rights. And we are facing destruction on basis of human rights. Enough pessimistic for the introduction?
I think it is great introduction, and I will continue because I'm working in Norway. So, and you are right. We had election there now in start of September, and the second biggest party after the election was populistic right-wing party. So you can see this change not only in European Union but around the world. So how is it in UK, and how do you see these issues, Simon?
Well, I think in the UK, I think you referenced 2020, but for us it's certainly a lot earlier. And everything's done in a very British way, so it's a slightly different style of corrupt shift into a form of fascism or authoritarianism. But it's very real, and I was thinking about it ahead of this meeting. I was thinking, really, I mean, Mrs. Thatcher was an interesting character because she undid a lot of the securities that had kept the democracy together. But she was a serious politician. She was probably the last serious politician we had, because, I mean, that seems a bit harsh on Tony Blair, but really that's where the kind of construct a story version of politics you're referring to really became dominant, and it's just got accelerated. And going back to your opening statements, which I agree with very much, but I think it's very interesting to talk about democracy and to talk about, in a sense, the deal. What is the deal? What are we getting out of this? And I'm always very struck by, you go back to the birth of democracy or Aristotle's account of it. And what is often missing in our current understanding is to understand that this is really a deal which is as much about socioeconomic circumstances as it was about the kind of political behaviour. So basically, Athenian society was becoming increasingly unequal. More and more citizens were moving into bond slavery to the rich, and the society was at the point of extreme breakdown. And then this almost mythological but very real character, Solon, came along and invented democracy. Now, of course, there were things that were like democracy before, but what's there in the Aristotelian account is an understanding that there is a deal here, that for society to function, there needs to be a certain level of socioeconomic justice, and what actually Solon was proposing, that you need a set of disciplines in place to ensure effectively that the rich don't exploit the poor. And now when you come back to the UK, this is what again is very interesting. Since I set up, originally it was called the Centre for Welfare Reform, and we changed the name to Citizen Network. What I tried to do was offer a progressive account of welfare reform. I used to argue with Wikipedia, which was pointless. I was always outruled. I would say welfare reform can't mean just cutting the welfare state. It must mean making the welfare state better. That's because that's what reform means. And my edits would always be taken away. So it was defined, in a sense, as the project of reducing the welfare state. And again, these things go back really to the 70s, to the rise of the kind of neoliberal agenda, to the Thatcherite agenda. But in 2010, we were hit by this government that came in with a very smiley Prime Minister, lots of smiles from David Cameron, and it was a coalition, so it was a coalition of the Conservatives with the Liberal Democrats, who were meant to be a centrist party, and lots of promises of community. And I mean, if you read the manifesto, it didn't read as an extremist kind of agenda. And they came into power and they cut radically funding for disabled people, for benefits. And the agenda all became about, in English we'd use these words like scroungers, which is somebody who's kind of getting money they shouldn't do from the state, and a very horrible language which is being echoed in the press and by government ministers. And then the opposition just join in. So the Labour Party actually facilitated a lot of these changes when its leader was Ed Miliband, because they thought that that was the populist thing to do. And you already see, so I thought, well, let's go and look at the facts. And there are facts, as you say, and we have, although some tries to distort the story, we have an Office of National Statistics, which is generally reliable for telling you the facts, even if it sometimes wiggles the presentation. So I went into the spreadsheets and I looked at who's getting benefits, income from the state, and who's paying taxes. And I've basically done this analysis most years from 2010 to now. And what I discovered then, and what has got worse every year since then, I didn't do the COVID years because everything was so crazy, the data was didn't make any sense, although it wasn't good. But basically, the poorest 10% in the UK have, over that 15-year period, and for much longer, paid more in tax as a percentage of their income than any other group. Okay? In fact, they pay more in tax than they receive in benefits. In fact, if you look at the benefit system, which is only one part of welfare, but a very important part of it, it's almost all paid back in tax. So the net cost of this dangerous benefit system is nothing. It's just it's almost like an accounting mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there's no discussion of this in politics, because they've all joined in this story of the hard-working taxpayer who's kind of in the middle, who's the person politically they're aiming to capture. Meanwhile, inequality grows, the poor are poorer, and we also pile on sanctions and conditions and demeaning stigma. And so all of these things go backwards. So, we were losing hold of truths that I think people had become somewhat aware of after the disaster of the Holocaust and World War II. The kind of things Hannah Arendt was saying, it was her last interview she said, the reason we're protected from totalitarianism is this welfare state system, because we're offering people enough security to stop them feeling anxious about their basic conditions. Precarity, insecurity, anxiety, I think, is one of the driving forces that enables this kind of fictional political dance to take place, just as Hitler found and others before him. So we've lost sight of those truths that we kind of had our fingers on, but we never really nailed down in the post-war world. So one of the interesting things is what you could ask yourself, what should we have done after World War II? And I think the other interesting thing is, of course, Solon's conception of democracy was nowhere like the modern version of democracy. The Greeks wouldn't have recognised this as a democracy. They wouldn't recognise our country as a democracy. They would say, oh, we have states like that, like Thebes was an oligarchy just up the road from Athens. Their competing elites competed for votes, and then they made all the decisions. So we live in an oligarchies. We describe them as democracies, so we've lowered the bar for democracy, so we have no real conception of what democracy is. And we've kind of abandoned an awareness of how important basic socioeconomic rights are. And those are some of the things I think that underpin our modern state.
If you do not mind, only 2 comments. We have to discuss, yes? Okay, I understood it such. I do not want to that my comment will now should be interpreted that I am economic determinist. Yeah, I am not. But no doubt that social economic circumstances and situation is crucial. No doubt. If I have talked about the shift in present history, there is the most important shift. is that at present time, because of new technologies, whole wealth in the world is concentrated in 10 firms around the world. 10. And 9 of them are in the United States. No one is in Europe, neither in Britain. No. So the first imbalance is because of this concentration of the wealth in these 10 firms, technological giants, versus politics and other world. First comment. Second comment. What does it mean concretely? That resources are discussed mainly by oligarchs, and they will. Nothing another. Third, we are facing oligarchia democracy. Fourth, the heads of the technological giants have more political power than politicians. Neither Trump has such power as Musk. Really not. What does it mean concretely? We have several instruments what to do. First, taxation. Yes? But if we use taxation on digitalization around the world from these technological firms, it's enormous amount of sources and finances, then politician Donald Trump reacted customs. So what we face, fifth, is new trade war. If there is no coalition of democratic politicians globally concerning international trade, then the winner are technological giants. Without any doubt.
Or maybe China.
Plus, it was my sixth comment. And there are new power game players, not only China, but also India. And I would like to say a very important thing. The world at this moment is divided to 2 blocks. Look at the defense military services in called West 2025. There are 20 states as a participation, Russia, China, India, etc. 20. And on another side, there are 28 so-called willing to support states. So 2 blocks, new division of power. I am not so sure where is the Trump. And nobody knows, because yesterday it was clear. But tomorrow it should be totally different. And this is what is, from my point of view, main constraint to really discuss social justice. Last comment. Okay, you need taxation to cover welfare. Yes. But the liberal democratic countries are facing deficits and debts. Never, ever in history, except the end of Second World War, there was so high debt like it is today. Consolidation everywhere. Look what's going on in France. There is no person who would like to be the prime minister. Maximum 3 hours and then run away. so unstable political situation in such a huge economy. I can continue with other examples from these states, but unstable political situation. So, how you can raise taxation in such circumstances? And last but not least, there are two instruments which each government is using, and they are not fair at all. And it's tacit taxation and tacit consolidation. This is what you have mentioned, that those who are low income there is tacit taxation and tacit consolidation of their incomes everywhere, because of the deficits. Plus, how you will motivate people?
But I think you might be misunderstanding my point. I mean, I agree with you. Like, we had, just to give you a very clear example of a few weeks ago, we had a big demonstration by right-wingers in Trafalgar Square. They had a huge screen. Elon Musk beamed in and basically incited violence. What was the reaction of the British state? Almost nothing. But only previously, they'd called terrorists peaceful protesters against the genocide in Gaza. And they proclaimed ordinary old people, arresting them on the streets of Trafalgar Square. So what you see here is this kind of powerlessness in the face of those forces. And what it calls for is, I think we probably agree, it's like if the political class, if there is such a thing, will need a level of maturity and cooperation that we just don't see at the moment. So you're absolutely right. I mean, the way capitalism has evolved has radically changed since the middle of the 20th century. And so the kind of political actions that require a different kind of response. And I don't particularly think that just doing the sums again differently, like they were done 50 years ago, is going to help. I mean, maybe you won't like this comment, but I mean, I noticed from these barometers of trust that one of the countries with a high level of trust by citizens, and you may doubt the data, is China. This year I read, the kind of book you should have read many years earlier, was Ernst Schumacher's Small is Beautiful, which was written in the early 1970s, which economists talking about the nature of capitalism, the challenges ahead, and actually many of the environmental challenges. But he just made this observation, this is a book primarily aimed at Britain. He's saying, you can't make your mind up about whether to nationalise or privatise. This is the early 1970s. Obviously, the privatisers won. He said, why don't you have to nationalise, but you could nationalise in a way of just partnering the state with enterprises, which is basically, as I understand it, and I'm not an expert, pretty much how China has kind of got to grips with its own capitalist system, or created a capitalist system. So whether it's right or wrong, what is very clear is that the model of kind of the state as guarantee of a kind of market in which enterprises kind of operate, and it sets the rules, that's all broken. The people inside the market control the game, and they do not operate just in a nation state, they operate globally, exactly as you described. And the devices, in a sense, by which they make their money, many of which are just now like software, they don't even, it's just almost just people playing with computers and coming up with ones and zeros in particular orders, but incredible powerful ways of feeding off us and pulling resources out of into their systems. So we are, you can't apply just the imagination of the mid-20th century to the problems of the 21st century. We actually need to imagine very different socioeconomic solutions, not just go back to, I guess, hopeful social democracy from the late 20th century. We really need to reimagine our relationship as citizens on a planet. We need to start thinking globally, seriously, and we need to really reconsider what the nation state is for within that context. And we will need politicians, but somehow what are the conditions of, in the UK, we used to, my son doesn't believe me, and maybe he's right, but I say we used to have, on left and right, statesmen. They weren't usually men, but statespeople, yes? We elected them, and you could tell that they genuinely tried to make things better, even when they disagreed about values, even if they had different priorities. You could tell from the quality of their arguments. And you can now tell that we do not have any statesmen, and we don't have any people capable of reimagining the game that they're in. So they're all drawn into that game. But, we have a few honourable exceptions, I would say, at home, but they are at the margins. The people at the centre of power are all whirling around that untruth, but that need to reconstruct a story. And certainly in our country, the ones with the right-wing stories are doing much better than the ones with the left-wing stories. And the fact the left-wing stories are now just becoming right-wing stories. So I don't want you to misunderstand my point of view. I may be sitting to your left, and I may have slightly more left perceptions of the problem, but the solutions are not old-fashioned leftism, because that's part of what's created this kind of paternalistic, failing democratic system, in fact. What's happened in our country is very clear, is that the left abandoned faith in citizens. So a lot of the solutions from that World War II version of the World War state basically assumed that citizens were passive objects of the state. And that's a disastrous part. And that's part of that, you mentioned sacrifice as well. And that's right. Actually, we want to be drawn into a meaningful contract where, somebody said this yesterday, what's meaningful for me is work, and meaningful work for me is work for others. And we all know that actually that's a desperately important part of the human condition. Some of my friends call that caring. That actually one of the key things we need to do is reorientate the economy around different values. Even the value of GDP is a meaningless value.
It's construct.
Yeah, it's a construct. And, it had a purpose, good or bad, but it had a purpose at the time. It's now utterly meaningless, and it's actually, it's not only that it doesn't correlate with good value, it actually probably correlates with bad value, but we still chase it.
We are talking about quality of life. And we cannot use old-fashioned categories and schemes, I fully agree, from the last century. Doesn't work. I will use and help myself with Luciano Floridi and his 4 major shifts in the history we have faced. Copernic, Darwin, Freud, and now we are facing totally new way of life, and it's on life, not online. On life. It's not true that our life is divided to virtual and real. No. It's one interconnected on life story. If there are attempts of national states to find their own solutions for their own problems inside the country, they are facing a new kind of globalization, and it's technological globalization and digital globalization and social network globalization. So people are not closed inside their own communities face to face. They are closed inside their own life bubbles. All their positions are therefore created from their experience from this own life world and stories and experiences. So our thinking in the way of values left, right, doesn't work at all. Really not. What is working today is how to find the sense of my life as individual personality without face-to-face interaction with other people. So what kind of community we have? Solidarity is based on community interaction. So how we will create new kind of solidarity in bubbles which are not stable, which are unknown, which are changeable, and which are based mainly on different emotions which you can change from day to day. So we are facing new challenge how to revitalize.
That term, Hannah Arendt called that atomization. She described exactly what you're describing as the key condition of humans prior to the Holocaust. Like, that people were not in community, and like some of that was socioeconomic. People felt incredibly insecure in their position, and that I think is the thing we have not addressed. To try and find a hopeful note, I mean, in the communities I'm working with at home, there are people breaking out those bubbles, and I think there are people craving to break out of them. What we find is that, in a way, the political imagination hasn't really grasped this, but individual humans and communities are, and I would say that one of the leading groups creating good value in the communities I know are people with disabilities, marginalised people. I was with a Somali community in Sheffield the other day. The Somalians were, in a sense, because they were bringing values of community from their home country, even though many of these people had lived or they were children brought up in Sheffield, the values of community, of loyalty to family, they still had those things. And they were like a beacon of hope back to the city that had, in a way, lost. So that the creativity they were doing, and they're making sure that their parents weren't going to end up in residential care services, and looking for solutions and creating those solutions in the city, but not on their own, not in a bubble, but active and engaged. And I see that with other friends. So I think that the hope is in the ground.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Simon, welfare and solidarity from the last century, and also first 10 years of this century, until 2010, was based on the principle specialized support and help to specific marginalized groups, which cannot work at present times. Cannot. The only way is the shift and really revolutionary change of whole system of social services from this specialized, special groups oriented welfare to life circumstances of the household as a whole, so on cooperation and common attempt to create services for the household as a whole. Otherwise, it will not work.
Well, can I add something to that? Because I totally agree, except I'd say it's family and neighbourhood.
Yeah. I agree.
And you know, the work I'm doing at the moment in England is very focused on this, because I feel like the only hopeful path is through neighbourhoods, which again, when you look at, and in a way, what you're thinking about as a neighbourhood is a community of maybe a few thousand, where people can really know each other, where you can unlock value, you can unlock creativity, because it's all there. It's essentially in the ground. It is like the soil. And it's totally ignored by the economic system. It's usually outside the economic system, and the economic system is often like bad farming, poisoning the soil with its. But if you start to actually take the poisons out and create structures that encourage community, and in that context, services are not even the main thing. The main thing is that people can help each other. As long as we don't extract too much time from their lives through so-called work. And we saw this during COVID in our communities, when the government said stop working to most people, but not the poorest, in fact, to people on that work, but to a lot of people, stop working. People immediately started doing real work by helping each other. Very interesting, and it's been very interesting to watch the desperate attempt by the old system to reclaim all of that time back. And no, you've got to come into the office now. No, you've got to do this pointless work over here that's adding no real value to your community because you're being paid for that. And so the communities die down again. But we saw a real flowering, and in disadvantaged communities where there's actually a lot of more stored capacity than in middle class communities, it's much easier to bring those things to life, and we're seeing it come to life. But it starts with people helping each other, and professional services, and I agree with you, then require to be radically redesigned, to be much more generic, to be much more, how do we help people in the context of their community? When you start breaking things down to that level in my country, you find that actually if you look at the whole number of social workers, we should have about 10 social workers per neighbourhood. These are neighbourhoods where nobody's ever seen a social worker. So these social workers exist, but they exist in different silos, in different professionalised roles. If they were actually working in that community, all the distinctions that we make, adult services, we've got adult social workers and children's social workers, we've got health care professionals, they stopped making sense. So they only made sense when we also distracted ourselves by ignoring all of those structures and took them all far too far away from community. So I utterly agree, but let's think about the neighbourhood as well as the family.
Absolutely. I will continue in this way of reflection. First step, what to do. I'm a person thinking all the time rationally. It was a mistake to be in politics, It's a rational way of thinking. So to return to our topic. Total redesign of all sector of public services. This is crucial. It means you cannot use digitalization and create many of online services, because you can do many things online, without first totally destroying existing bureaucratic system and administration of whole this sector, because it's divided, I repeat myself, is specialized, is not cooperative but competitive. Mistake. It will never work. Secondly, if you wish to have quality of life, the assumption is that you have really qualified and quality social workers and whole public administration. Without new skills to them, you can build nothing. Third, there will never be adequate amount of financial resources. But the question is how we use those resources we have. Because at the end of the day, it's more and more and more expensive and less effective. Everything as a program, it's built in really not adequate way. And ethos of solidarity. This is for me major issue. Who with whom? Who with whom? We have different systems. You have intergeneration solidarity in pension system. but demographic crisis, social economic crisis, low incomes, and system is in collapse, like it was in 30s last century. You have to totally reform it. Then you have system of family support. What I am listening all the time, all so-called economists are saying the same sentence: to address concretely and according to the income allowances and benefits for the family. What? I am not the God who will say that the income higher €1 is enough and this family will not receive the benefits at all. This is so injustice. I cannot imagine worse solution. Sorry. So there is no way how to find adequate financial resources for deficits. Not at all. If we think not like economists but normal people, then it was joke. You are not laughing. Then you know very well that lower social income in the family, which in EU is in average 27% of overall income, 1/4. If you decrease it, you will decrease purchase power. If you decrease purchase power, you will have less income to the state budget from consumer taxation. They are not thinking in a whole circle at all. One economist, Nobel Prize economist, Balding, said sentence that, those who are saying that we can have a never-ending economic growth with very strongly defined ending sources are either economists or idiot. And this is truth. So what we really we are facing is, and I only add to your reflection, that the model of self-help and community help and neighborhood can work when you have communities which are heterogeneous. Imagine a homogeneous community in marginal territory. This will not work. Marginal territories with all people in poverty and in need.
So why don't we just get rid of poverty? I mean, we could just give everybody a basic income. I mean, and that is part of...
It's a big issue and a hot issue. And
poverty is a political choice.
Not at all. It's also individual choice. It's not only a result of objective circumstances, but also subjective attempt to do something. But you have opened for me a very hot and big topic, and it's basic income. We can talk about this. I am open to this. There are pluses and there are really terrible risks.
But it's part of, I mean, it can be a simplifying assumption, but it's one brick of an imagined future, which, if we're going to practically describe a better economic system for the 21st century, you will have to think about, what is the system of economic security that we give people? The number of people, as inequality increases and as wealth concentrates, we're reaching a point where more and more people's income are subsidized. And the other part of my analysis that I did was benefits are actually given right across the top 10% were still receiving benefits in my analysis. The benefits were not distributed particularly to the poor, and the taxes were not particularly targeted to the rich, or to some degree at the very extremes. So we're already living in a system with huge economic transfers of sorts going on, although actually their net effect is very perverse and doesn't benefit the poorest. So it's not exactly problematic to say, maybe in a system where, if you look at this historically, why we didn't need these systems historically was because people had resources in the land and in the forests, so they could grow things, they could hunt things, and what's happened as through industrialization is most people have lost the security of the land. They can't get their basic resources to live. So you need to create an economic system that reflects the modern reality, unless we just go back to pre-industrial kind of situation. The modern reality is that if resources are effectively captured by institutions, whether those be private or state, then we need a way of putting in people's hands enough power so that they can feel secure day after day. The medieval peasant worked less than a modern worker with all the robotisation and all the digitisation, and the modern worker isn't being efficient in what they're doing. So this is part of the failure of the economic model. It's not really addressing this basic long-term expropriation from ordinary people of their ability to safeguard their well-being. And you might say that they could work and they could avoid poverty, but they're playing a very difficult game in circumstances where the things get more difficult every day. Some people climb, some people fall, but historically that is not the human situation. Historically, people took care of each other and found a place in the land. They had wars to worry about occasionally, and like I read the history of Slovakia, you'd have people invading, but the normal human situation was one where you could guarantee from day to day that, well, there's things we can eat, we've got a home, we've got a community we're part of. We've taken that all away.
Okay. Where to start? We will not return to the pre-industrial age.
This will be very bad.
No way. Where we are is new, really informative revolution with new technologies. I fully agree. These so-called hard, non-qualified works are already done by robots, and it will be widespread. But it means that this kind of jobs has created more added value, because the most expensive is our force, human force is most expensive. So, in other words, there are revolutionary change at the labor market. Yes. Then the question is, what will people do? What they will do? If there is a robot who do it much better than you, and you do not need him, you don't need a human being, not at all. Okay. Sitting at home and doing chat on mobile. What they will
plenty
do?
to do. There's plenty to do. Go into your community and find something you can improve. Do something with your neighbours. Do something. Human beings don't have a problem being creative. They have a problem surviving in a world that gives them no economic security and pulls them often into meaningless work.
I agree with you. But you have to prepare people for this kind of change. If you give people basic income without, in quotation, soft pressure on them to be also active, they will be lazy.
Wait.
They will be lazy.
I've written about exactly this. So this is
Yeah.
an area of specialism.
Okay.
And we actually agree. So I'm in the
Yeah.
basic income movement, but I actually say, you know, you need to think about this as a constitutive element of constructing people's citizenship, and there are structures. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm less happy about talking about it as pressure, because who is the pressure
I
from?
said it in quotation.
Yeah, because,
really.
I mean,
motivation.
The people
Okay.
at the top of our system are not people I would trust to nudge people in the right direction. But people need the right structures. And this is like the democratic structures, the community structures, the systems of encouragement, the ethics of citizenship.
And social control inside community.
Yeah, rules.
Rules.
Yeah, I agree.
And here is the momentum where there is a real problem. Because, look how complicated it is to behave according to the laws. And we are now talking that we will create a new system of norms where normal is that people are doing something actively for the community. It's not such easy change. So my only comment is and reaction that you cannot redistribute basic income without the at least norms, functioning norms, for motivation people to be active and to participate. And this is, from my point of view, major problem and major risk. We know in Slovakia very well what does it mean to really push the people to be active in if they are in generational poverty. It's a real problem. And several factors are there. It's not the space to discuss them concretely, but they used to live in the way they are doing nothing. To be open, is there anybody who will not prefer one day to be totally lazy and do nothing? Me, yes.
No.
Really, really, believe me.
Definitely not you.
But I think this is one of the things that maybe we do disagree about this, because when we were developing the personal budget work, that was the working assumption of the powerful, of people in services, of politicians, that disabled people in this situation, but this is wider than disabled people really, that if we transfer economic power to them, that they will make worse decisions than they would have made. And all the data said the opposite. People make better decisions, partially because they're more motivated to do the right thing because it's their life. So I could see the skepticism on the face.
Their voting preferences.
Yes, exactly. If you judge it from that, but that's also part of the problem. If we go back to the problem of trust, you see that the people do not feel like they're in. So Confucius said, trust is like the bolt that keeps the oxen connected to the cart, and when it's broken, nothing goes forward. Well, nothing is going forward because, and Lao Tzu said, to get trust, you have to give trust. Nobody is building trust from the powerful. They're building mistrust. All of the policies that I see for the last 30 or 40 years in my country and in the US, whose social policies I'm pretty familiar with, have been about mistrusting citizens, about controlling citizens. Maybe we call it motivation, but what we're doing is we're shifting into a position of power over people, an assumption that we know what's in their best interests. But what I see in communities where people don't have a basic income, but there are a lot of people with disabilities with a disability income which is just leaving them in poverty but not in extreme poverty, and they have time, and the conditions are important, so I'm not just saying naturally, but with modest changes in conditions, people start to connect, to organise, to act. What seems to be very important, however, is that it's there's a collectivity that comes in through interpersonal relationships. So if you go back into the bubble in your poverty, then that's very easy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're connected to other human beings, you can see other human beings, and you're even in poverty, but kind of with some security, and you're not being disciplined all the time, then actually pro-social behaviour is the norm in my experience. So I think that I would question some of the assumptions that have driven really the political game of the last 30 years. They seem to me contrary to the evidence, which we're both fans of. The evidence to me suggests that conditionality and control does not work. Trust with the right support and the right foundations does work. And part of that is also about creating peer support and a community focus, which opens up options for people. And these are very hopeful things, which is one of the things we need to keep coming back to in this conversation.
Our life stay on three pillars. Market, civil society, and my home, my private sphere. Inclusion means you can be included in each of the pillars, or all three, or at least at one. Exclusion meant you are nowhere. If you are nowhere, is a disaster, and it's the mistake, to be polite, of the central government. That's why I think we will find common solution if we divide our way of thinking to two major dimensions. One is from top to bottom policies, and another is bottom up policy. If I talk about top to bottom, it means the role of the state, then the system of public services is what is in between the power, the state, and the citizen. The trust, therefore, is based on the quality of public services. Trust towards state.
You think?
I'm sure.
But
I know it.
We trust our National Health Service. We don't trust our politicians.
No, I am now talking about institution as a state, as an institution, not concrete politicians.
No, but we don't. Yeah, but we don't trust that layer because we're not just experiencing them through our experience of public services, and we have enough intelligence to recognise our doctor is trying to take care of us, the nurse is trying to take care of us, and we're grateful for the fact that we don't have to pay for it. But we can see that the fools on top, from sitting in my country, are just playing as they reorganise the health service every 3 years and tell us everything's going to be better. Most people can see that for the nonsense it is, because we see the political state solution actually through the lens of the media and through the way the politicians play back to us. So we don't really see the relationship as the politicians think that that's it, and so they think their job is to do this and do that and pull this lever and pull that lever. But those institutions go on trying to survive whatever that group is doing this week. And they try and do the best job they can because they're a completely different class of people generally. Like they're doing a different game, managing their careers, trying to do a good job. And that's how most citizens understand it.
Simon, there are sectors in the society where no way of individual interrelations and solidarity can solve the problem. Healthcare system is too expensive. You have to put together enormous amount of money because of new technologies, new ways of diagnosis, etc. And you have to have governmental policy. You have to have. Otherwise, you will have no system.
I'm not against it. I'm just saying that we have a pretty efficient health. We actually score incredibly well in efficiency because we basically take a certain fraction of GDP and say, right, about 10% of GDP is for the healthcare system, right or wrong. And that's fairly depoliticised. what the politicians try and do is not really alter that.
I wanted
They
to
organise
divide.
structure.
I wanted to divide institution, state, government, responsible for security, without any doubt, for healthcare, without any doubt, for education system, without any doubt, and public services, without any doubt. To have streets, to have transport, to have net to support marginalized people, etc., without any doubt. And the trust towards institution called state or government depend on the quality of these public services you have in touch every day in your life. And then more, if we think in this way, from top to the bottom, then yes, we are back to the financial resources to cover it. I am not talking about politicians, because Farage, Brexit. At the end of Brexit, what he has said? Yes, I was lying all the time, and what? And what? I will not talking about politicians, because first politician who was prime minister because he was lying all the time was Boris Johnson. He was working, as you know, for Brussels newspapers, for London, and he was the author of more than 500 titles in newspapers, lying all the time what's going on in Brussels. He was the author of these titles that Brussels order us what kind of bananas we can buy, etc. He was lying all the time. And it was enough to win elections. And this was example, come on, other politicians, if you lying in this way, you will be winners.
But David Cameron's lies were just as big.
Yes,
And
yes.
Tony Blair's
I only
lies were pretty
wanted to-
fantastic.
I only wanted to stress who was the first.
Boris, I mean, politicians are famous for lying, in a way. It is the...
Sorry, I am not.
No, I know. So you are unusual. But you made that point yourself. Yeah? But politicians are famous for lying, and Plato, Socrates talk about the art of rhetoric and the art of persuasion. So this is always
I
been
only
a complex
wanted to
thing.
divide, institution and the duties
But
and concrete politicians and what they are doing. These are two different things.
I guess I am a bit confused by this, because if I think from a UK perspective about, maybe we don't use the state a lot, the term state in the UK, but I think if we said, do we trust the government? I think these are the questions in the Edelman thing. Trust scores are very low. Do we trust public services? Again, they vary, but they're much higher. So we don't see them as particularly equated. And actually, I think that's correct. I mean, they're not really. There's obviously a relationship, because the state system is the political governmental system is running, in some sense, these services. Although running is a questionable thing, but they're people can really see they're not the same thing. But also, people really struggle to know what quality is. So if I look at the education system in my country, its long-term quality, I would say, has declined. But you see no reflection of that in public discourse. You do see it in the fact that more and more children are excluded from school, if you know what's going on. But in the ordinary, as it were, like people's immediate experience as a parent or as a child it is what it is. And you don't really have any way of understanding how it could be different. So is the child being educated? There are very low bars set, and then you have no way of really evaluating that. And you're given no option in your community to ask questions like, why have our schools all become so big? Why has the curriculum become so boring? Why are so many children being excluded? That's not even something that's part of the discourse. So it's like we can't even sometimes evaluate the public services in any meaningful way as citizens, we're given what we get. We kind of, there might be a long-term decline in value, but certainly for some institutions like the health service, people are just basically grateful that they can get free healthcare.
Empirical evidence, I can use several analyses to argue, but the last, which was published 2 months ago, and I'm sure you know it, Global Trends in Government Innovation, done by OECD. And there are very concrete conclusions and arguments and facts that better, more quality, more effective public services, higher trust to government. There is correlation, without any doubts. Another major conclusion is that there are good best practices around the world. In France, in Norway, Italy, we can talk about these examples where some new governmental policies are really very effective. And how you can measure it? That the citizens are included in the society. This is major criteria. How you can measure a level of education? That the people can find their own way of life and they are satisfied. I am a sociologist. Always my measurement is how you feel. Are you satisfied? What do you wish? What are your needs? In other words, what can I do for you? And what can I do for you as a prime minister? And what can I do for you as a minister? What can I do for you as a deputy? And what can I do for you as a human being, Iveta Radičová? And there are several possibilities what I can do. But first step is I know the needs of the people. I'm very far to the social engineering and feel that I know it. No, I do not know. Each of us is very specific. It can be something totally different than me. Maybe feel happy in totally different occasions. But what is my duty is to try to understand what people wish. And what I can do is offer them choices. Choices. Look, if you decide to be qualified as IT, you will be very wealthy very quickly. If you have decided to study at Bratislava, you will be very clever, very educated, with very widespread spectrum how to continue with your qualification. And one day you will be very successful, maybe prime minister. So, choices. And people are prepared not to be lost in the world of choices and understand this as insecurity, but to understand freedom as the only security point in my life. Because it's the entrance to human dignity. And what does it mean, freedom and entrance to human dignity? To have choices. So the duty of the government, the duty of each social worker, the duty of whole public administration is to create the spectrum of choices and to prepare people to be adequately educated, to recognize the choices and to know what are the benefits and the risks of each choice. So, where we are losing? Because we have ordered the standard of living, the life minimum, the basic income, the consumer package, etc. We have no right to do such things. What we have to do, I repeat, is to create conditions, choices, adequately educated and qualified people. And I know that the education is correct if the people are capable to find the way to be included either to civic society or market or neighborhood somewhere. And they have enough energy to do such a choice. It means they survive.
So I think if there's lots we agree about, but I think going back to the beginning of the conversation, what Solon introduced, as well as the democratic structures that were much more participative structures, which were based on the demi, which was the neighbourhood, which is often forgotten. So people met at the demi level, the neighbourhood, as well as meeting at the ecclesia on the Pnyx in Athens. But he also banned interpersonal debt. So actually all the debts citizens had to the wealthy were eliminated, which in a world where you had the ability then still to farm your bit of land or ply your trade, was effectively economic security. So I think that basic income discussion is clearly probably a touch point for disagreement, because I think I can't imagine a version of the 21st, 22nd centuries that hasn't created a much more robust form of economic security in a world that the 20th century was already radically insecure. The 19th century was radically insecure. The 21st century is going to be radically, radically, radically insecure because of the way in which digitalization and robotics concentrates power in whoever's hands, whether it be the state or whether it be private enterprises. So yeah, I think that I feel like, on the one hand, socioeconomic conditions do demand a level of imaginative intervention, and you might see that as top-down, but I see that as a collective action, like our National Health Service is just saying, everybody here is okay. We're going to make sure everybody has enough just to start the conversation. Then we can have a conversation about choices. Then we can have a conversation about contribution. But the other thing is, the other part of the democracy package is it assumes that most decisions are decisions you're making in your community. So many of the things that, say, education, seems to me, actually, you could radically reimagine education at a much more local level. And I think many public services could be radically reimagined at that level. I think this will be an empirical process. I'm not saying I know what they'll look like, but I think we probably agree that the current bureaucratic siloed system is failing and won't succeed. It's designed wrong. And I agree too that many structures will get digitalized, and that process itself will be quite painful, particularly for the bureaucracies. My experience is bureaucracies are very effective at fighting for their power, so that they won't give it up easily. But we'll see how that happens. But back down at the community level, people...
You know how you can do it?
Yeah.
The only way? If you try to digitalize the now existing legal system and bureaucratic system, then you will conservate non-effective and failing system. So what you need to do is first change the legal system, legacy, change all the competencies for bureaucracy, and only then digitalize. Otherwise, you will really digitalize bureaucratic, totally failing system. This is the way.
Yeah.
So,
this is the way.
Just to,
How do you feel?
I feel very nice, because when I was working at the ministry, so I said that I have empowerment management for my employees, that they should decide, they should do choices. So this was empowerment discussion that we discussed very well. But we have around 30 minutes, but I want to ask, because you touch almost all the points in the questions which we had there, but I want to ask one thing, because there are students here, young people, there are people with disabilities, there are people who were working in this area for many years. So where can we start, or what should we do first to start to design new system? Because as I understand your discussion, we need to design actually the way how we think about the issues. So where can we start? What will be maybe some recommendation from both of you to people who are in the room?
I can say that I know where I'm starting. I mean, and I suppose it's because I think that's something that's probably a good place to start and something I can do, but it's a much more grassroots thing because I have no power in the system. And in the UK, the right political conditions for a more sensible conversation don't currently exist. It might exist. The egg in our political system can crack in a number of different ways. It could get a lot worse, could get better, but we'll see. But there's no chance at the current point of having a rational conversation at the top. But in my community, I come from, I live in the city of Sheffield, which Sheffield is part of the county of Yorkshire. It's a very ancient county, over 1,000 years old. And in South Yorkshire is made up of 4 cities, Sheffield, Barnsley, Rotherham and Doncaster. And we've been working on, basically we call it neighbourhood care. So how can we actually take the neighbourhood, which is about 4,000 people, kind of is a neighbourhood, and my city didn't even have a map of neighbourhoods, so citizens mapped the city, and so we created a digital map of the neighbourhoods, and we've now managed to negotiate with our local leaders, because local leaders tend to be somewhat more rational because they're engaged directly with life, to now shift points of kind of neighbourhood decision making, and to start reorganising public services around neighbourhoods. And there's one neighbourhood in Doncaster where the group that's a big partner of Citizen Network called People Focus Group Doncaster, that's 3,500 people with disabilities, mental health problems, who've been for 15 years now, it's been growing from nothing, but over that 15 years, people are helping each other, organising, going out and contributing into their communities, challenging public services to reform themselves, which initially was taken with a lot of resistance, but now there's openness. So a lot of my focus is on that challenge. How could we build it and then show people that we're building it? And as we build it, share what we're learning so that we get this idea out there. And then, and I am maintaining a political discourse around this as well, but I'm trying to look for the leaders for the future, not just kind of fighting with the broken politics, but looking who are the people. Like we have a mayor of Manchester I like called Andy Burnham. We have a Green Party that's got good leadership. We've got several local MPs who are very good. And so having those conversations to say, hey, there's a hopeful vision here, because because of the issues we've been discussing, they all know that it's kind of broken. They all know that it's on a very slippery slope. In the north of England, disenchantment with the Labour Party is very high, and so we expect to see Reform winning lots of seats. And the north of England, where I come from, is usually kind of socialistic. We take care of each other. We believe in equality. That's our kind of ethos. And we see all of that falling apart around us. So that's my focus. But I will carry on working in the basic income community, because I think that, although I agree with your comments, I think we need to not just see basic income as merely an economic change.
Yeah.
It's actually a fundamental socioeconomic shift, and actually we need to think about all the structures around that. So I will continue to be active there and promote that, because I cannot see a way forward that doesn't deal with those issues we talked about at the beginning. I see radical insecurity and poverty every direction I look. And it's far worse than when I was a child. When I was a child, you didn't see homelessness in the UK. Right? Now, supposedly in GDP terms, we're much richer. But now everywhere I go, we see homelessness. We never had a food bank until 2020, till 2010, when David Cameron came in. Food banks are by politics. It's by pushing poverty into people's lives. That's been designed by the political system. You can see it in the maths. So we need to take responsibility for the things that are genuinely political, which is basic economic security in the modern world is fundamentally political because people have no way of surviving without those systems of economic security. So that's my little promise.
Okay, it's not easy question, and we are at a liberal arts college, so if to complicated problem I will say easy answer, you can be sure it's wrong, but still I will try. Two ways, globally, what we have to do, and at home, what we have to do. Globally, 8 billion people around the world with huge amount, 100 billions in poverty. We will face migration. We will face migration. Not only because of economic reasons, but because of the wars and because of the climate change. All this together. So to be prepared for migration, it's first conclusion. Second, globally, we are in trade war and this will continue. The former international balance doesn't work at all. Neither in the sphere of trade, nor in the sphere of keeping the peace. I'm talking about aggression of Russia in Ukraine. Terrible. If we leave it such, it means that we are open to the solutions that any country can solve their problems through the war and change their borders. It's terrible precedence. This we cannot leave, not at all. If somebody doesn't understand this, he is blind, to be polite. So, yes, to do maximum to have a peace once more, at least in Europe. Because without the peace, we cannot be oriented on peaceful solutions. So except prefer, we will have once more warfare, like it was in the last century. So from warfare through workfare, we have to be in prefer, but we will be once more in warfare. This is the worst solution I can imagine. So, major challenges globally, connected with new kind of poverty, and it's energetic poverty. And this has consequence that what we really need to do is reform of our economic models. Economic models based on fossil energy is really against human dignity because of climate, because of resources. You cannot be sovereign, you cannot build peaceful politics if you are totally dependent on resources for energy. You are not free. What we are playing game or what? We are not free at all. So, hand in hand with all these three things, climate change solutions, sure. And then what at home, concretely? I'm usually joking that where is this public administrator with the breakfast for me each morning? Because we have such an amount in Slovakia of public administrators that they are according to numbers, enough to do the service for us and bring us breakfast each morning. So what they are doing? Yes, I agree, bureaucrats are the first one who will be against any change. Usually the answer is, it's impossible. You want to change something? It's impossible. It's against the legislation. Or at least we haven't resources to do this. We haven't finances. Always how you cannot do the things. Usually, what we are doing is new problem, okay, at least new office, if not new ministry. In Slovakia, we always create new ministry.
Wow.
We have never so many ministries like at present. We will have also ministry for rain, I am sure, and then for sunshine, I am sure. So, if you do not want to do something, create a new institution. It's the end of the effort. Because what we really need is, I have mentioned it already, new legislation, new definition of public services, oriented for the future demand, future needs, together with all these changes in society. It means to concentrate, I repeat, on household as a whole, from the beginning of existence to the end of existence. And not specific administrative bodies and institutions and all the time administrative procedures, etc. We know that to find a way how to solve the problem of handicapped people, people in poverty, excluded people, etc., you can die to find a way how to solve it. Really, I know what I'm saying. You need months. Quickly you will die than to find a way how to solve the problem. Not because it's not in legislation, because there are so many bureaucratic obstacles that you have no way to be the winner of this fight with all this administration. It's terrible. So what we really need is to forget all these administrative constraints, really forget. If it's on me, I would start from zero, really from zero. Stop it and once more. Because if you want to repair such a complicated system, this will be never-ending story. There was first an attempt to digitalize some functions of life. For example, the birth of the child. They have done it 3 years. That at present you accept 9 papers, you need 6. Are they joking with us? This is very far from what we can call that it's service for the people and digitalized without these constraints. So also when we invest the money, the result is really terrible. It's for show. My husband would be happy if he is here, because it's political satire, but not reality. So, where are your staff? From zero. Cancel whole system. It's complicated, non-understandable, not justice, not helping those who really need the help. Once more, redefine it through concrete life situations and digitalized, that majority of services you can offer the people online, and where there is no chance to do it online, only then to be really in touch and contact in the field. You do not need to have social worker to check if your housing conditions are really such as they are. You have mobile, you can do video. Come on, where we are. We are in 21st century. I do not see nothing from this. And last but not least, I have mentioned we have to forget workfare as the market is changed, and to start to think about prefer to do more preventive services, not to wait when the people is really in trouble. It's too late. And last but not least, the only really justice social policy is adequate income from your job. All other things are not fair and never will be. I can imagine the quarreling on the level of basic income. Come on. One populist government will say this sum, another populist government another sum. Nobody will be capable to pay it. Nobody. And then it will be collapsed from inside. And who... stop. The only way really is to have effective economy based on green solutions, transformation from fossil energy, and last but not least, based on new technologies and digitalization. All these together meant very high investment, but as you know, always the transformation of the economy and the industrialization has started was the impulse for whole society. So we can understand this as a new impulse for our societies. So too much to do. And without good solutions in elections, you will never face this change. That's also reality.
I will give place to questions from you if you have any questions. So just raise hand. I see that we will use the plenty, but if you have any questions. Yes.
Okay. First of all, I am very happy to be here with you today. I am very happy to meet Mrs. Radičová. I really appreciate your personality and I like you very much.
Thank you.
And I would like to ask that there are many problems nowadays in this world, but I think the main problem is that we are facing to our political situation, which is very bad. I don't like this government, these ministers at all, and if we want to change them, I am asking you, what should we do? Because there are 2 years until the real elections, and we would like to do it earlier, and we are making some protests, but many people say that's nothing will help us. So what would you tell us to do to change this situation? Thank you very much.
Yeah, applause, yes. Thank you. You know, I do not want to start to say fairy tale. I really do not lie to anybody. So it will be not earlier. This is first sentence. The coalition government is always only such strong as the opposition is weak. My answer is we have to support alternative. Yes, we can protest, we can show we are dissatisfied, but okay, and what then? So, if the opposition can have a chance and should win only if they show, first of all, that they will be stable. Secondly, that they will have common priorities and not to be divided by present coalition governments on values. Third, that they know what to do with the country, and they will inform their voters what they will really do, and together. So my answer is ask opposition to inform us about their steps, their politics, and their guarantees of stability. So our problem is not that Prime Minister Fico is in power. Our problem is the weak alternative. That's our problem.
Thank you very much.
With pleasure.
There's a question about
There was our student.
I will ask a bit theoretical question if I may. I think partially it was already answered, but I wanted to tackle it a bit deeper. And I think some of what's already been mentioned touches on this idea. So we often interpret politics and politics through the traditional left and right lenses. You touched it on the beginning of the discussion. Yet today, as you also mentioned, global challenges from technology to climate and beyond don't always fit neatly into those categories. So my question is, as global issues increasingly blur the boundaries between traditional ideologies, is the left-right framework from the standing policy still relevant, or has it become an outdated lens for interpreting political reality?
Shall I go first
Yeah,
this
you
time?
go first.
I know that if I let you go first, I'll
No, Simon, go on. Please.
So I think it's interesting, the left-right distinction. Obviously, it goes back certainly to the French Revolution, doesn't it? But ideologically, I've always thought there were three ideologies: liberalism, conservatism, and socialism. Those have been, I think, the dominant competing ideologies. I'm an anti-ideologist. I think ideologies are themselves a symptom of sickness. Like Hannah Arendt would say that it's an idea gone mad. Like it's like the logic of the idea loses touch with reality. It's one of those ways in which, in effect, that game of not paying attention to reality gets played out through this kind of ideological process. So there's these three ideologies, and what we've seen, certainly talking from a UK perspective, is effectively the collapse of conservatism into liberalism. So we've seen that the liberals, people who believed in freedom and markets, and I would say secretly believe in meritocracy, that's what it disguises. Like, so some people get to rule over other people through economic exchanges and through extracting value for themselves. That's become the dominant left-wing, right-wing story for a while. And the left, I think, really suffered from communism in a way, you know. So actually, socialism now becomes only a term of abuse. So it's quite interesting. I would see, like, I think we're really living in a time of dead ideologies.
Mhm.
So we use these terms, like like if I was at the end of the 19th century and I said I was a socialist, you could say I was using it as a badge of pride, and you would know what I would believe in. But now the people who use the word socialist are really people who want to insult people. And the term neoliberal is the rather strange, I mean, it's just liberalism as far as I can see. It's the same process. So we want to insult you as a liberal. And strangely, conservatism is still very underground. And a lot of my thinking, I think, is how do we take the truth that each of those three ideologies actually has, like everything in human nature. There's always something true, even in the most thing that becomes kind of evil and distorted. So there's something true in conservatism, which is that families matter, communities matter, identity matters, civil society matters, because this is how we construct a life of inclusion, and it's how you construct diversity. So I'm intrigued by the fate of conservatism, how it's been kind of eaten by, and then it's kind of now collapsing into authoritarianism without, like, even the kind of market, like, so Nigel Farage is on one day, he's a kind of extreme liberal, on the other day he seems to be a statist, you know, and that's what we have with Hitler, and all of these characters will play the game because it's just now to suit them. So yeah, I suppose so to come back to your question, I think it never really worked very well. It was always a bad sign that was what, and of course oligarchy, because I don't believe in that, needs these primitive signifiers, yes? So you're my tribe. Like the Romans used to just have colours that they wore, you know, blue, red and green, and they were to do with charioteering, but also to do with what political party you supported. And we're basically back to that now, tribal loyalties, with theory projected onto it. So let's collapse it all. And let's go back to what are the fundamental truths we need to address? How do we engage with reality? Let's name the death of ideology. Let's not try and resurrect it or give them the dignity they don't deserve. Each of those theories as ideologies is nonsense. Strictly, I mean, they're clearly nonsense once thought through. So that I think we're in this process of probably collapse of structures of thought, and we should encourage that. We should laugh at it and move on to asking the right questions for the 21st century. Sorry, that was a rather rhetorical answer to a very good question.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Any other question?
This one.
Yeah.
I have one. I think it was interesting to see the little bit of a disagreement around basic income, but I think what you managed to meet around is the role of a community in our society, whether it's family or neighborhood. And something that I've been thinking a lot, especially in the context of climate change and how we need to transform the economy and where the job opportunities will arise. And something that's very clear to me is that the most impact on the quality of life that can be somewhere centered is service jobs, so education, social work, healthcare, and those also are low carbon jobs. So whether you can maybe discuss or see some entry point in this, that basic income could be something that would be tied to community work, the purpose that you mentioned, that we know is important and brings value to quality of life. To really find a way how we can motivate people to take care of our surrounding and the people around us. And I know it sounds a little bit pathetic, but I'm counting on both of you to make it more practical.
We were too practical all the time. From my point of view. Thank you very much for the question. Briefly, the shift from industrial society based on the majority people employed in industry was done in last century, around 60s, 70s, and this was a reaction on the crisis in that time. And economics were reformed from the industrial-based labor market to the social services-based economy. From that period, in average in EU, without United Kingdom, sorry,
No, sorry from us.
it was
Sorry
your
from us.
decision.
Not mine though.
Yes, I know. I'm sure you know. So the average employed in social services is 80% in EU. In some countries in Northern Europe, it's less than 10% employed in industry. So more than 90% is already employed in public and social services. In EU, the highest number of employment in industry are still in Slovak and Czech republics. 30%. 30. It's the highest number. So we didn't done neither the transition in 70s last century, and now we are facing the new transition to totally different kind of industries. Therefore, it's so complicated with, and it's only Slovak case, total dependent on Russia oil, totally. Czechs are not longer, they cancelled whole energy from Russia. So we are alone in this situation, and not because circumstances or devil didn't like us, but somebody near devil has decided in this way. Wrong decision. So we have cumulative problem. Conclusion, there is enough space for further transition to the sector of public and social services. The problem of this sector is that according to the wages, it's not creating so-called added valued jobs. So the wages and incomes are low in these sectors. Therefore, concerning GDP and deficit and state budget, there is not adequate income to the state budget because of the low wages in this sector. In other words, if we reform the sector, plus I have mentioned, use new technologies, new digitalization, it means it will be more effective with added value than with higher wages, higher income to the state budget, then it's real impulse for the economy. And not only for economy, but for society as a whole. The risks are here. First, energy resources. Second, if we do not know precise needs of the people, then we will create social services nobody really needs, and not create those who people really need. So first thing is to have good data collection and knowledge of the society, and plus with regional discrepancies. Third, we need skilled servants, really skilled, because majority of them are not adequately skilled. and qualified. And what we really need is to revitalize all services which were already decentralized, but we know that we gave the competences to self-governments which are not have no capacity to fulfill. But this is not the problem of the people there mainly. They are unskilled majority, but not here is the major problem. But what we need together with all these changes is a really deep reform of public administration. Imagine small Slovakia, 5.5 million, 1 million less than Nairobi city. And we have government, regional governments, self-governments and more. We have 2,976 self-governments. Finland, which has the same amount of citizens, have 1/10 of this. Too expensive, not effective. They cannot do the competencies we delegated to the self-governments. We have delegated from state to self-governments more than 2,000 competencies. Can you imagine how they can do it in the village with 250 inhabitants?
Well, I want to kind of
Yes,
push back
neighbors.
about that,
Neighbors.
but
Yes,
also
I know.
answer the question about basic income. Well, because I did an analysis of the city of Barnsley, and if you look at we're talking about public services and jobs, but there's lots of people doing jobs that are totally unpaid, and they're called carers, and they're almost always women. And one of the most fundamental changes, which one of the reasons I actually support basic income, is it's basically a feminist strategy. It actually puts money and resources in the hands of women directly, and so and many women are caring. And we should think about redistributing care differently, but unpaid care is huge. And the economic value of unpaid care in the analysis I did in Barnsley, even when we used a very low, the treasury rate, which is very low hourly rate, was equal to the whole of the healthcare system.
Yes.
And I then did another analysis where I looked at all the citizen capacity. So this was what would be possible if people were using the time that they currently had. Now, actually, in my view, there's much more time available because there's a lot of people doing bullshit jobs, as David Graeber would describe them.
Yeah.
But if you really release that was equivalent, again, at the treasury rate to all public spending in Barnsley. So that the citizen capacity and carer capacity together represents an enormous area we just don't invest in. Now, we may disagree about what prompts or what structures or how much control or where to begin. And in fact, there's so little empirical evidence to go on here that as human beings, if we follow an optimistic path, we will stumble into the right solutions through a mixture of both. We won't really know. We can have opinions, but that's all we can have. All I would say about this latter matter, which you're obviously much more expert in Sheffield, like Sheffield, we are kings of centralisation, okay? So like if you look at the map of local government in England compared to other European countries, Slovakia is actually at the extreme of small.
Mm-hmm.
We are way up here. In my city, a city of 600,000 people, twice the size of the country of Iceland, we've got one council with 85 councillors for 600,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk to local people about what they want to do, they want to get involved in the neighbourhood. And there is no neighbourhood structure, no democratic structure, no even administrative structure. So I don't think we're going to find it and there's too many empirical details, but just be careful about assuming that centralisation will help you be more rational, because we've had no additional rationality value from centralisation. And countries like Iceland, with a population of half of Sheffield, have neighbourhoods that have control of education, social services and healthcare. So average population of about 4,500, same as the Sheffield neighbourhood. They have a parliament, they have a constitution, they have a president, they have opera houses and things that Sheffield doesn't have. And they live under the snow half the year. So I just don't believe that it's not within the capacity of, say, my city to radically democratise and to create economic security systems that keep people safe. I think we can do that, and I have much more faith in my community than people living in London who don't even know my community.
I fully agree, but you cannot have extreme, and we have extreme. If you put 2,000 competencies to 3 people in a small self-government, come on, it's too much also for me.
I can't judge.
It means something. Extreme. I was co-author of decentralization model in Slovakia, so it's also my job.
Yeah.
But now really we need natural creation of micro regions who will help each other in some competencies. Otherwise, they cannot do elementary public services for the people, neither concerning the transport or other things. They cannot really. It's impossible. So that's why I have mentioned this. It's extreme. You know, when I was in Hong Kong, they have asked me that, come on, you are 5.5 million and you have a government. It's relative, you know. We are, if you look at EU, on 27 countries, sorry to repeat this, 9 of them are really bigger, like Italy, France, Poland, etc. 9 are middle range, from 5 to 10 million. We are inside. And 9 are smaller, less than 5 million. So this is division inside EU. EU have a complication also because it's connection of small states, and differences are not only concerning economy, history, culture, languages, etc. There are 200 languages in EU. 200, come on. So it's not only because of these differences, but also because of the balance. You cannot compare the economy of Poland and Slovak Republic. Yes, so that's why the only way is contract and partnership. Same as the level of neighborhood and community. If it doesn't work, it will not be united anymore because of these differences. So to return to the major question, yes, the future is in new challenges connected with new risks we are facing, crises we are facing, but also the need to really reform whole systems. And I add, ideology, socialist, liberal, conservative, will not help us at all. No one.
We agree about that.
Yes.
Thank you. I see that it's 10 minutes after 12, so I will just give you a very short floor for maybe final message from the discussion to the auditorium. So something optimistic. Yeah.
It's very hard.
Simon, be optimistic.
Yeah, well, I am dedicated to being optimistic. It is a personality flaw, an ethical duty, and I believe there's always action you can take. And the thing is, when I look at the hopeful things that, say, some of the things that I think in my country, with all its flaws, like the creation of the National Health Service was a hopeful institutional change, and all of that was prefigured by things that, particularly in the north of England, ordinary people organise systems of collective health prevention and public health, and we can do this stuff. We can still do it now. We have energy, we have resources if we choose to use them in these ways. Yes, there are lots of things that are crazy, lots of things that are irrational, and lots of things that are very, very frightening. But when it comes to the environment, when it comes to taking care of each other, when it comes to living a good life, there are lots of things to do. Lots of things that actually, without planting those seeds in the ground, you will not get the bigger solutions. You will not get the better solutions because, in my experience, where politicians were not the problem, bureaucrats were, but every good policy outcome was effectively the amplification of something that people could see already. So I think that and it goes back to perhaps Marianne's question as well, like in the end, like politics is a distancing game. Most of us, most of the time, are going to feel like our power is very, very little. But go to where you have got power. That would be probably my message.
Okay.
If you have a look on the bottle and there is only half of inside, you can interpret it the same situation in two ways. It's half empty or half full. We are polarized. There is a half full society of positive people with energy, with will to live in democracy based on human dignity and to do something for this. And for me, this is a very good message.